Maria stepped out of the small convenience store just as the last sliver of daylight slipped below the rooftops. Her uniform shirt felt damp from the day's late shift. She paused on the cracked pavement to pull her thin jacket tighter around her shoulders. The evening air carried a faint chill, and she breathed in slowly, gathering her strength. She had spent the day standing behind the register, greeting regular customers with a tired but genuine smile. Though her feet ached and her back protested, she thought only of getting home to her daughters. Every step toward her apartment building made her heart beat a little faster. She watched the sun's orange glow fade in the windows of nearby houses. In her purse lay the crumpled rent notice she had found that morning. She had kept it folded in her pocket all day, hoping it would disappear if she ignored it. But nothing makes a problem vanish faster than facing it head-on. Maria told herself that tonight she would finally sit down and figure out how to catch up on the bills. Reaching the chipped blue door of her building, she fumbled with her keys. The lock clicked open at the third try, and she pushed the door inward. The hallway smelled faintly of cleaning solution and the lingering scent of last week's rain. She climbed the narrow staircase two at a time, her thoughts focused on her girls. Lily would be drawing at the kitchen table, and Sophia would be humming a little tune as she colored beside her big sister. Maria pictured the two of them, uniforms, laid out neatly by the door, their homework spread out in a tidy pile. Inside her modest apartment, soft lamplight glowed through the living room. Maria slipped off her jacket and hung it on a chair. A pile of textbooks and coloring books sat open on the table. Lily looked up, her eyes bright with curiosity. "Hi, Mama," she said, setting down her pencil. Sophia waved a crayon in the air and gave a small squeal of delight. Maria opened her arms and the two girls ran forward, wrapping around her legs. She knelt and hugged them both, feeling the warmth and trust in their small bodies. She ruffled Lily's hair and kissed Sophia's cheek. "How was school?" she asked, trying to sound cheerful. Lily launched into a tale about her math quiz, talking so fast that her words tumbled over each other. Sophia added her own little story about the sunny spot she found on the playground. Slide. Maria listened, nodding and smiling, while her mind drifted back to the stack of envelopes on the counter. She knew she had to face them soon, but for now she let her daughters talk. Finally, the girls went back to their work. Maria crossed to the counter and picked up the papers. There were letters from the electric company, the phone company, and the office that managed her apartment lease. Each envelope felt like a small weight in her hand. She took a deep breath and spread them out in front of her. The numbers on the bills stared back, mocking her. She pressed her fingertips to her temple, blinking to clear the sudden rush of worry. "Mom?" Lily called softly. Maria looked up to see her daughter watching her with wide eyes. "Are we okay?" Her voice trembled just enough to make Maria's heart clench. She forced a smile and said, "Of course, sweetheart. Everything is fine." She stood and walked around the table to tuck a loose strand of hair behind Lily's ear. Sophia hopped off her chair and took Maria's hand. "We'll be okay," Maria told them both. She spoke slowly, choosing her words like stepping stones across a stream. "I promise I'll find a way." Maria pulled out a plain notebook from her purse and flipped to a blank page. She wrote down the names of each company, the amounts due, and the dates they needed to be paid. She added a column for what she could afford now and what she needed to make up later. The girls watched her, their homework forgotten for the moment. She invited Lily to help her with the math, and together, they added and subtracted, turning the frightening numbers into sums and differences on the page. Sophia sat beside them, coloring a picture of their little family. As the three of them worked by the soft glow of the lamp, the apartment felt full of purpose. Maria pointed to a date on the calendar and said, "If I can pick up a few extra hours, this weekend I can pay the phone bill." Lily nodded, her brow furrowed in concentration. Sophia beamed as she added a bright yellow sun to her drawing. Maria felt a flicker of hope. She had been so worried just a moment ago that she could barely breathe. Now she saw a path forward, small but certain. Just as they were finishing, a firm knock sounded at the front door. Maria's stomach tightened. She wasn't expecting anyone. The knock came again, more insistent this time. She set her pencil down and rose slowly, placing a gentle hand on Lily's shoulder. Her mind raced. Could it be the landlord? A neighbor? She took a steadying breath and walked to the door. The girls followed, standing close behind her. Through the peephole, Maria saw two figures in dark uniforms. They stood with their backs straight and their hands at their sides. One held a clipboard. The afternoon light outside had faded into dusk, making their badges glint faintly in the street lamp's glow. Maria's heart pounded as she unlatched the door. She opened it a crack and peered out. "Good evening, ma'am," one officer said in a calm voice. "We have a civil warrant to deliver. May we come in?" Maria swallowed. Her hand trembled against the doorknob as she tried to keep her voice steady. "A warrant?" she asked. "For what?" The officer glanced at the clipboard. "For eviction," he replied. "You have 10 minutes to gather your belongings." Maria felt the world tilt for a moment. She gripped the doorframe, blinking to clear her vision. The girls clutched her legs, their eyes wide. The calm, measured tone of the officer contradicted the fear that rose inside her. She took a breath, pushing down the panic. "May I please have a moment?" she asked. The officers exchanged a look. The one with the clipboard nodded. "You have 5 minutes," he said. Maria closed the door slowly, her mind racing. Behind the door, the apartment was suddenly too small. The lamplight flickered across the stacks of paper on the table. Lily and Sophia stood close, their faces pale. Maria knelt down to their level. "Don't worry, my loves," she whispered, her voice soft but firm. "I'm going to make this right." She kissed the tops of their heads and stood again, smoothing the front of her cardigan. She pushed her fear down, letting focus take its place. She opened the door and stepped aside, motioning for the officers to enter. They walked past her into the hallway as she followed, her daughters just behind. Each step felt heavy, but Maria held her head high. Every moment of the everyday courage that had brought her this far, the long shifts, the late-night homework help, the careful planning, flashed before her. She glanced at the clock on the wall, its hands ticking forward. She had 5 minutes to prove that a mother's love could turn any crisis into an opportunity to stand tall. Maria's heart pounded as the two officers stepped into the narrow hallway of her apartment building. The dim light cast long shadows on the peeling paint of the walls. She could feel Lily and Sophia pressing close behind her, their small hands gripping the fabric of her cardigan. The taller officer cleared his throat and spoke in a calm voice. "Ma'am, we have a civil warrant for your eviction. You must leave the premises immediately." Maria swallowed hard, her mind racing. She forced herself to remain composed. She gently placed a hand on Sophia's head and looked at Lily. "It's okay," she said softly. "I'm handling this." She turned back to the officers. "I understand. May I have a moment to gather my things?" The officer with the clipboard flipped through the papers. He glanced up. "You have 5 minutes." Fear and determination swirled inside Maria. She nodded and took a step back, motioning for the girls to follow her. The officers remained silent, standing just inside the door. As Maria moved past them, Lily whispered, "Mama, I'm scared." Maria knelt, wrapping her arms around her daughters. "I know, sweetie," she said, her voice steady, "but I promise I'll keep you safe." Sophia sniffled, burying her face in Maria's shoulder. Maria rose and hurried back into the apartment. She paused at the table, eyes darting over the open notebook and the bills she had been sorting. Adrenaline sharpened her focus. She grabbed her purse from the chair where she'd hung her jacket. Inside were her daughter's birth certificates, a spare key and a small amount of cash she had been saving. She yanked out the documents and slid them into her jacket pocket. "Mom!" Lily called, pointing to her backpack, which lay open on the floor. Maria crossed the room and scooped up the pack. Inside were Lily's math book, Sophia's coloring pad, and a small stuffed rabbit the girls took everywhere. Maria slung the backpack over her shoulder. She heard the officers step forward in the doorway. Their voices were low, but she caught the word 5 minutes again. With a quick glance around the living room, Maria counted the items that mattered most. The girls' homework, the baby pictures on the shelf, the small wooden chair they loved. She would leave behind everything else. She grabbed the 2 textbooks and tucked them under her arm. As she turned toward the hallway, Sophia's favorite blanket lay on the couch. Maria grabbed it as well, folding it carefully and placing it inside the backpack. She motioned for the girls to take her hands. Outside, the hallway felt colder, as if the air itself had been drained of warmth. The officers watched without expression as Maria led Lily and Sophia past them. One of the officers cleared his throat again. "Ma'am, step aside so we can proceed." The taller officer stepped forward and Maria felt a wave of panic, but she stood her ground. "I'm not going anywhere until I talk to someone in charge," she said, her voice firm. "Please, just let me call my landlord." The officer frowned. "The warrant is valid," he said. "There's no time for calls." Maria shook her head. "There has to be. I need to explain." Suddenly, Lily tugged at her sleeve. "Mama," she whispered, tears welling in her eyes. "Why are they taking us away?" Maria knelt down, looking into Lily's frightened face. "They're not taking us away forever," she said, forcing a reassuring smile. "They want me to move because of the rent, but I'm going to fix it. Just hold my hand, okay?" Lily nodded and clutched her mother's hand tightly. Sophia squeezed Maria's other hand, her small fingers trembling. The officer with the clipboard cleared his throat again. "Time's up," he said. He reached out to take Maria's elbow. Maria pulled back abruptly. "No," she said. Her voice echoed down the hallway. She straightened, keeping her balance. The guard swallowed, surprised by her strength. The taller officer stepped forward to help his partner. Maria braced herself, planting her feet firmly on the scuffed linoleum floor. She refused to let them pull her away from her daughters. "Please," she said again, quieter this time. "Let me call someone who can help." For a moment, the officers hesitated, then both reached for her arms. Maria's stomach twisted, but she didn't struggle. She looked down at Lily and Sophia. Their eyes were wide, reflecting the hallway light like twin lanterns. In that instant, Maria felt a surge of fierce love. She squeezed the girl's hands and stood as tall as she could. The officers lifted her arms behind her back and snapped handcuffs around her wrists. The metal was cold and unforgiving. Maria flinched but did not cry out. One officer patted her pockets, then directed her toward the stairs. She nodded once, then paused. She lifted her gaze to the faces of the 2 women she had fought so hard to protect. "Don't be scared," she said softly. "I'll be right back." Her voice cracked slightly at the end. The officer pushed gently on her shoulder, guiding her down the steps. Maria took careful strides, her knees weak. Lily followed, clutching Sophia's hand. As they reached the 2nd floor, the echo of their footsteps filled the empty stairwell. Maria's purse swung at her side, and she realized she still held the stack of bills in her other hand. In the stairwell landing, the girls pressed close beside her. The guard motioned toward the front door. Maria forced herself not to panic. She looked down at Lily. "Stay close," she whispered. "I'll find a way." When they reached the ground floor, the hallway outside the building spilled into the gray evening light. A patrol car was parked on the street, its lights off, for now. A few neighbors peered from behind curtains. One old woman in a floral robe stood at her door, clutching a broom. Maria felt their eyes on her, but she refused to meet them. The taller officer pushed Maria toward the car. Lily reached out, tears streaming down her face. "Mama," she cried, her small voice cracking. Maria bent down, bringing her face close to her daughter's. "I love you," she said. "I'll be okay. You two be brave. I'll come find you." She pressed a kiss to Lily's forehead, then Sophia's cheek. The girls clung to her hands, but the officers pried them loose. Maria's daughters took a step back, their arms stretched out but unable to reach her. Maria watched until their small forms shivered on the sidewalk. Then she stood and turned toward the patrol car. The officer opened the back door and motioned for her to get in. Maria hesitated, looking once more at the door of her apartment building. She could picture the lamp still glowing through the window, the drawings on the table, her notebook with the plan to catch up on rent. She forced herself to step into the car. The seat was cold and leather slick. The door shut with a click that sounded too final. Maria sat upright, her back straight against the seat. One officer took the wheel. The other climbed in front, clipboard in hand. The car door shut and locked. As they drove off, Maria watched the building shrink in the rear window. The parking lot lights slid past, bright orbs in the dark. She closed her eyes and let out a shaky breath. She was still in handcuffs, still a mother facing uncertainty. Yet inside her a calm determination settled. She would not let fear take her spirit. The patrol car rolled through quiet streets. Empty shops and dark houses passed by. Maria counted the seconds in her head. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. She focused on the rhythm, letting it steady her thoughts. Each beat was a reminder of her promise to Lily and Sophia. She would find a way back to them. When the car finally stopped, the officer opened the door and motioned for her to step out. Maria rose, still in the metal cuffs. She stood tall, meeting the officer's gaze. He looked surprised at her calm. Without a word, he unlocked the cuffs and released her wrists. Maria rubbed them, flexing her fingers. She took a deep breath and said, "Thank you." The officer nodded and handed her back the purse and her coat. Maria gathered them and zipped up the jacket. She reached into her pocket to feel for the birth certificates. They were there, crumpled but safe. As she walked away from the patrol car, Maria pulled out her phone. Her hands shook, but she dialed her sister's number. A few rings, then a familiar voice answered. "Hey, Maria, what?" "I need your help," Maria said, her voice steady now, full of resolve. "I need a place for Lily and Sophia tonight, and I'm going to fix this." She knew the road ahead would be hard, but in her heart, she carried the fierce light of a mother's love. And no matter where she went next, that light would guide her home. Maria's daughters huddled together on the cool wooden floor of their living room, their small bodies pressed so tightly that they seemed almost like one. The door to their apartment was shut, but they could still hear the faint echoes of raised voices down the hallway. Lily's hands trembled around the phone in her lap. Sophia, barely 4 years old, clutched the edge of the coffee table, her tiny knuckles white with fear. "Lily," Sophia whispered, her voice barely audible. "What's happening?" Lily swallowed hard and pressed the phone's keys one by one, her thumb shaking so much that the numbers blurred together. I'm calling for help, Sophia," she said, trying to sound brave. "They took Mama out of the house." Tears brimmed in her eyes, but she blinked them away. She knew she had to be strong for her little sister. On the other end of the line, a calm voice answered, 911, what is your emergency?" Lily took a deep breath and held the phone closer. "My mom, 2 officers took my mom away," she said, her words tumbling out. "They said something about eviction. She's gone, and we're all alone." "Where are you calling from, sweetie?" the dispatcher asked gently. Lily glanced at the calendar on the wall. 472 Crestwood Lane, apartment 4B, she said, doing her best to be precise. "Please send help. My sister is with me." She shifted and put an arm around Sophia, who leaned her head against her sister's shoulder. "Stay on the line, Lily," the dispatcher said. "Help is on the way. Can you tell me if you're safe where you are?" Lily looked around the dim room. The single lamp on the side table cast a warm, reassuring glow over the girls' homework and crayon drawings. "We're okay for now," she whispered, "but I'm scared." "I understand, sweetie. Stay calm. Help will arrive soon," the dispatcher said. A distant siren could be heard faintly, growing louder by the second. The girls' eyes went wide as they realized they would not be alone for much longer. Outside, Maria sat in the back seat of the patrol car. The leather seat was cold against her legs, and the handcuffs around her wrists bit into her skin whenever she moved. Through the window, she watched the neighborhood pass by, darkened homes, street lamps glowing like distant stars, and the occasional neighbor peering out of their window. The car's engine rumbled beneath her, its smooth hum a strange contrast to the chaos that had just unfolded. Her mind raced. She kept replaying the moment when the eviction officers arrived. She had felt so sure that she could talk her way out of the situation, that a few kind words or a promise to pay would be enough. Instead, it had spiraled into a nightmare of forced removal and frightened children. She pressed a hand to her chest, feeling the rapid beat of her heart. She had to stay calm. She had to find a way back to her girls. The patrol car turned onto a side street and came to a stop outside a small police substation. The officer in the front seat opened the door and looked back at her. "This is your stop," he said quietly. Maria nodded. She stood up carefully, the cuffs clicking as they slipped over her wrists. The officer unlocked them and stepped aside. Maria massaged her wrists, wincing as they reawakened. She pulled the fabric of her jacket over the red marks and offered a tight smile. "Thank you," she said softly. The officer inclined his head. "You're free to go, but you'll need to settle this warrant." Maria nodded again, her thoughts already turning to what she would say next. She stepped out onto the pavement, the cool night air washing over her. She pulled out her phone and saw her sister's name on the screen. Back in the apartment on Crestwood Lane, Lily and Sophia sat quietly on the floor, their eyes fixed on the front door. Lily held the phone tightly, a lifeline that connected them to help. Sophia stroked the sneakers she had been planning to wear the next day, tracing the scuffed toes with her finger. "They're coming, Sophia," Lily said, her voice trembling, but determined. "Just wait here with me." Sophia nodded and leaned into her sister's side. They heard the siren grow louder until it stopped in the hallway outside. Then there was a soft knock on the door. "Police," a gentle voice said. "Open up, it's us." The girls exchanged a hopeful glance. Lily moved to the door and turned the knob. She pulled it open a crack and peered out. Two officers stood, there their badges gleaming in the hallway light. "Are you Lily and Sophia?" one officer asked kindly. "We got your call. Can we come in for a minute?" Lily stepped aside to let the officers enter. They knelt down to be at eye level with the girls. One officer kept a careful watch on the hallway, while the other spoke softly to them. "We're here to make sure you're safe," the second officer said. "Your mom had to go with us for a little while, but she's going to be all right." Sophia's lower lip trembled, and she wrapped her arms around Lily's waist. Lily put her arm around her sister, feeling the tiny weight of her sister's trust. "Where is Mama?" Lily asked, her voice steady despite the tears in her eyes. "She's just down the street," the officer said. "She called ahead and asked us to take care of you until she can come back. Do you have somewhere you can stay?" Lily thought of their small living room, their grandmother's house on Park Avenue, their neighbor Mrs. Chen next door. She remembered her mother's final words. "Stay brave. I'll come find you." She looked at Sophia, whose big, brown eyes looked back at her with trust. "We can stay here," Lily said. "We don't want to go to anyone else's house." The officer nodded. "That's fine. I'll leave someone with you until your mom returns." The officer radioed quietly into his shoulder mic. Moments later, another officer arrived with a small folding chair. He placed it gently beside the girls and sat down, keeping his tone friendly but firm. "My name is Officer Ramirez," he said. "I'll stay right here until your mom comes back to get you." Lily nodded, offering a small, grateful smile. Sophia clung to Lily's hand, her tears drying in the warm lamplight. The two of them sat together, their front door open just enough to let the hallway light in, and watched Officer Ramirez as he filled out some paperwork. Outside, Maria walked briskly down the street toward her sister's house. The night air tasted of anticipation and hope. She could feel every step loosen the tight knot in her chest. She dialed her sister again, and this time, the call connected, immediately. "Maria!" Her sister's voice rang with relief. "Where are you?" "I'm on Maple Street, just by the park," Maria said. "I need your help. They took me down to the station but let me go. Lily and Sophia are back at the U apartment. Officer Ramirez is with them now. Can I bring them to you tonight?" "Of course," her sister said without hesitation. "Come straight over." I'll be waiting in the living room." Maria hung up and took a moment to steady herself. She smoothed her hair and straightened her jacket. She tucked her phone into her pocket and set off again, her footsteps echoing softly on the pavement. She rehearsed in her mind what she would say to her neighbor to request help with the back rent. She thought of a plan. Call the landlord, ask for an extension, reach out to the local housing assistance program. As she turned the corner onto Crestwood Lane, she saw the familiar blue door of her apartment building. The hallway light glowed warmly through the side window. She paused for a moment to look up at the second-floor window where her daughter's drawing still hung. A red crayon sun smiled back at her. She felt her resolve strengthen. She climbed the stairs 2 at a time, her heart lightening with each step. She reached the landing outside apartment 4B. The door was slightly ajar. She could see Lily's backpack leaning against the wall and Sophia's small pink sneakers on the floor. She pushed the door open and slipped inside. Officer Ramirez looked up from the notebook in his hand. Lily and Sophia stood just behind him, their arms wrapped around each other. The girls' eyes widened when they saw their mother. "Mama!" they cried together and rushed forward. Maria dropped to her knees and wrapped her arms around them. Lily and Sophia buried their faces against her jacket, and Maria held them so tightly that she could feel their rapid heartbeats against her own. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, her voice thick with relief. "I'm here now. I promise I won't let anything ever take you away again." Officer Ramirez stood and gave her a gentle nod. "Your girls are safe," he said. "Stay with them as long as you need." "I will," Maria said, her voice strong again. "Thank you." Maria turned to her daughters. She stroked Lily's hair and kissed Sophia's forehead. The room felt suddenly alive with warmth. The fear that had gripped them moments ago melted away. Here, together, they were whole again. She stood and faced Officer Ramirez. "I need a moment to get their things," she said. He nodded and stepped into the hallway, giving her space. Maria knelt and picked up Sophia's crayon drawing of their family, then grabbed Lily's math book. She tucked both into her bag along with the girls' jackets. She found their favorite stuffed rabbit and placed it carefully inside. Then she zipped up the bag and stood. She walked to Officer Ramirez, her daughters beside her. "Thank you for staying with them," she said. Officer Ramirez smiled. "It's my job. Take care of your girls, ma'am." Maria gave a polite nod and turned toward the door. Lily and Sophia's little handprints were still on the wooden floor, smudges of love she would carry with her wherever she went. She closed the door behind them and led her girls down the hallway and out into the night. As they stepped into the cool evening air, Maria took a deep breath and looked at her daughter. Maria's heart raced as she guided Lily and Sophia down the hallway toward the lobby. The overhead lights hummed softly, and the patterned linoleum under her feet felt cool and clean. The 2 officers who had escorted her down the stairs stood near the front doors, their posture tight and formal. Maria clutched her daughter's hands, her fingers brushing their soft, trusting skin. With each step, she felt the weight of the past hour pressing on her chest. The shock of the eviction notice, the fear for her girls, the force of the officer's grip. She took a steadying breath and reminded herself that she had to be strong for Lily and Sophia. As they reached the lobby, Maria lifted her gaze to the large windows that looked out onto the street. A single street lamp cast a pale circle of light across the concrete sidewalk. She imagined the patrol car waiting outside, the engine's idle hum a distant promise that the world had not forgotten them. The doors swung open with a soft whoosh, and the cool night air brushed against her cheeks. The officers stepped aside, motioning for her to walk forward. Maria hesitated, wanting to make one final plea. She opened her mouth to speak, but at that moment, another figure appeared in the doorway. Police Chief Daniel Harper strode into the lobby. He wore a crisp uniform and his badge gleamed under the fluorescent lights. His posture was relaxed but authoritative, and his gaze swept the room with quiet confidence. Maria's breath caught in her throat when she recognized him. She had met him at a community event weeks earlier. when he had visited the local school to talk about safety and trust between police and residents. His calm smile and warm manner had put her at ease then, and she had told him how much that visit meant to her and her daughters. "Chief Harper?" Maria whispered, stepping forward a little, her voice trembling with relief. The officers stiffened when they saw him. Their shoulders straightened, and one reached instinctively for his radio. Chief Harper raised a hand, palm open, and they froze. "Stand down," he said in a voice that brooked no argument. His tone was gentle but carried a firmness that filled the room. "Ma'am," he added, turning to Maria, "is everything all right here?" Maria's throat felt tight, but she managed to nod. "Chief, I don't know what happened. They said I had to leave because of an eviction order, but I've been trying to sort things out. I've been saving money." He held up a hand to quiet her. "Let's take a look at that order," he said, glancing at the officer who held the clipboard. "Please." The officer obeyed, handing over the paperwork with slightly shaking hands. Chief Harper scanned the document swiftly, the case number, the address, the signature at the bottom. His brow furrowed as he took in the details. Maria watched him, her heart thudding in her chest. Lily and Sophia stood close by her side, their eyes wide as they took in the sudden shift in energy. The tension that had gripped the officers seemed to melt away into the quiet hum of the lobby lights. Maria wanted to explain more, to tell him how hard she had worked, how she never wanted to cause trouble, how she only wanted to keep her family safe. Chief Harper's gaze lifted from the papers. "There's something not right here," he said, his voice low enough that only the officers around him could hear. He turned back to Maria. "Ma'am, I'm so sorry. It looks like there was a mistake. This order was meant for another address down on Oak Street. It seems someone transposed the numbers." Maria's knees felt weak, and she sank onto one of the leather chairs in the lobby. Lily and Sophia clung to her skirt, looking up at her with hopeful eyes. "Another address?" Maria repeated, her voice soft. "All this time I thought—" Chief Harper knelt down to their level. He smiled kindly at the girls. "You two are very brave," he said. "Your mom did everything she could to protect you." He straightened and turned back to the officers. "Stand down, gentlemen. Ms. Torres's eviction is canceled effective immediately." He handed the paperwork back to the clipboard officer, who looked relieved but embarrassed. One of the officers cleared his throat. "Chief, shall we apologize to Ms. Torres?" Chief Harper nodded. He turned to Maria. "I apologize for this mistake," he said, holding out a hand to help her stand. "I know this must have been frightening. We'll make sure this never happens again." He looked at the two officers. "I want a full report on how this error occurred and how we can prevent it in the future." Maria accepted his hand and rose slowly, dusting imaginary lint from her skirt. Her shoulders sagged with relief, and she squeezed Lily and Sophia's hands. "Thank you," she said, her voice thick. "Thank you so much." He smiled. "You're welcome." He pulled out his phone and typed a quick message. "I'm sending this to the courthouse now," he said. "This eviction order will be voided today, and I'll personally follow up to ensure no further action is taken." He looked at Maria and her daughters. "Is there anything else I can do for you?" Maria thought about the nights she had spent worrying, the piles of bills, the constant stress. She swallowed back tears and shook her head. "No," she said. "You've done more than enough." Chief Harper signaled to one of the officers to return the papers to the courthouse. "Go ahead," he said. The officer nodded and stepped out of the lobby with the other officer, leaving Maria alone with Chief Harper and her daughters. Lily and Sophia squirmed a bit, and Chief Harper bent down again. "Would you girls like to see something special?" he asked, producing 3 small badges from his coat pocket, miniature versions of his own badge, polished and shining. He handed one to each of them and one to Maria. "These are honorary badges," he explained. "You 3 are honorary members of our community watch. You'll keep an eye out for each other, and we'll keep an eye out for you." The girls' faces lit up. Lily turned her badge this way and that, marveling at the shine. Sophia hugged, her badge to her chest, her eyes bright with wonder. Maria felt her heart swell with gratitude. The whole nightmare of the past hour seemed to dissolve into this simple, kind gesture. Chief Harper stood again and offered his arm. "Let me walk you home," he said. "It's late and I want to make sure you get in safely." Maria hesitated, glancing at her daughters, who were already stepping toward the door, clutching their badges. She looked back at Chief Harper, whose expression was warm and earnest. "Thank you," she said, voice full of relief. She lifted Lily into her arms and took Sophia's hand. They followed Chief Harper out of the lobby and onto the quiet street. The air was cool and the glow from the street lamp painted their shadows long across the pavement. The patrol car had gone, but the world around them felt safer now. As they walked, Maria felt the panic of the earlier struggle fade away. She glanced at her daughters, their tiny badges sparkling in the night. "You girls were so brave," she said softly. "I'm proud of you." Lily leaned against her, and Sophia pressed close, their energy calm and trusting. Chief Harper fell into step beside them. "You're doing a great job, Ms. Torres," he said. "Your strength and love for your girls, that's the best badge of all." He paused at the corner and helped Maria cross the street, holding an imaginary flag of safety between them. When they reached the sidewalk in front of their building, he stopped. Maria's building loomed before them, windows dark, but for the soft glow of a single lamp at her apartment window. She tightened her grip on Lily and Sophia. "We're home," she said, a smile curving her lips for the first time that night. Chief Harper looked up at the building. "Take care of each other," he said, "and if you ever need anything, don't hesitate to call." He tipped his head in a salute, the gesture formal but his eyes warm. Then he turned and walked away, disappearing into the night as quietly as he had arrived. Maria watched his back until it faded around the corner. Then she turned and unlocked her door. Lily scampered inside, badge in hand, while Sophia followed more slowly, her little legs tired but happy. Maria held the door open, feeling the familiar click of the lock behind her. Inside, the soft lamplight welcomed them, and for the first time in days, Maria felt safe. She knelt by her daughters, brushing Lily's hair back and tucking Sophia's blanket around her shoulders. "Let's put these badges somewhere special," she said, "so we always remember tonight. The night we stood tall, the night the chief came through." The girls nodded, their eyes sleepy but content. Maria led them to the table where her notebook lay, now open to a fresh page. She wrote the date at the top, June 12th, 2025. Beneath it she wrote, "The night a mistake became hope." Then she drew 3 small stars, and beside each the word brave. That night, as Lily and Sophia drifted into sleep, Maria sat by their bedside watching their gentle breathing. The world outside felt kinder now. The moonlight slipped through the curtains in silver ribbons, and Maria whispered a promise. Whatever challenges came next, she would face them with courage, because she was not alone. She had her daughters, and somewhere out there, a chief who cared enough to step in when they needed him most. ChatGPT said. The next morning dawned bright and clear, as if the world had turned a page to a fresh start. Sunlight filtered through the thin curtains in Maria's living room, painting soft stripes across the floor. She sat up on the couch, half covered by Sophia's embroidered blanket, and watched her daughters still asleep on the small sofa bed. Lily's arm was draped over Sophia, and their peaceful faces looked so small and innocent that Maria felt her chest swell with both relief and hope. No loud knocks, no harsh uniforms, just quiet morning light and the steady rhythm of her girls' breathing. She rose carefully so as not to wake them, padding to the kitchen to brew a pot of tea. The kettle hissed gently as water reached boiling point, and the familiar sound grounded her. While the tea steeped, she gathered her notes from the previous night. The newly voided eviction warrant, the list of local assistance programs, and the contact information for the social services liaison Chief Harper had arranged. She placed them in a neat stack on the counter, then poured herself a cup of steaming tea. The warmth spread through her hands and up into her heart. Soon, Lily padded into the kitchen in her pajamas, rubbing one eye. "Mama?" she whispered. Maria smiled and scooped her up, setting her on a stool beside the counter. Sophia toddled in next, clutching her favorite stuffed rabbit. "Good morning, my loves," Maria said softly. She handed each of them a small mug of warm milk. "Did you sleep well?" The girls nodded, smiles blossoming on their faces. "We had dreams about the stars," Lily told her. And Sophia added that she dreamed about flying with butterflies. Maria laughed, marveling at how they could turn even the darkest night into something gentle and bright. After breakfast, scrambled, eggs and toast, Maria set the girls up with crayons and paper at the kitchen table. She pulled out the papers Chief Harper had sent, a letter confirming that her lease would not be terminated, and information on a rent assistance program that could help cover her back payments over the next few months. A social worker was scheduled to meet with her that afternoon at the community center. She explained all of this to Lily and Sophia in simple terms. "We have friends who will help us, so we can stay here together." They nodded solemnly, understanding more than she expected. Lily offered to help with her math again, and Sophia declared she would draw a big house with a red door, so no one would mistake it for another building. By midday, Maria walked to the community center with her daughters holding her hands. The sun was warm on her face and she felt a lightness she hadn't known in weeks. Inside, she met with Ms. Patel, the liaison arranged by Chief Harper. Ms. Patel was kind and efficient. She reviewed Maria's case, submitted the paperwork for emergency rent relief, and connected her with a financial counselor who would help create a budget plan. Within hours, Maria received confirmation that funds would be deposited directly to her landlord by the end of the week. She almost cried with gratitude. Ms. Patel gave her a folder of resources, childcare options, free after-school programs, even a list of part-time jobs that offered flexible hours. Maria thanked her again and again. Outside the center, Lily and Sophia skipped along the sidewalk, collecting dandelion seeds and wondering aloud about where the wind would carry them. Maria let them blow the seeds into the breeze, watching as each tiny parachute drifted away. In that moment, she felt the same weight lift from her shoulders. She realized that the eviction notice had almost broken her, but instead had set a new course, one where she had help, a safety net, and a community that cared. Over the next few days, word of Chief Harper's intervention spread through the neighborhood. At the grocery store, Mrs. Chen smiled and offered fresh vegetables from her garden. At the laundromat, Mr. Ramirez let Maria use the machines at a discount. Even the landlord, Mr. Brooks, stopped by to shake her hand and say he was sorry for the misunderstanding, promising he'd work with her on a payment schedule. Maria felt overwhelmed by the kindness all around her. She realized she wasn't alone. She was part of a community that would rally when one of their own was in need. That weekend, Maria and her daughters joined a community cleanup event organized by the precinct. Chief Harper was there, wearing a bright safety vest. When he spotted them, he waved and brought over 3 matching vests for them to wear. Together, they planted flowers in the building's planters, picked up litter in the parking lot, and painted a cheerful mural on a blank wall, a big yellow sun over 3 small houses. Children from other apartments joined in, laughter ringing out as paint splattered and brushes dipped in bright colors. Maria watched Lily and Sophia paint the smallest house in red, just as Sophia had dreamed. Chief Harper stood beside her, handing her a roll of painter's tape. "You're an amazing mom, Maria," he said quietly. She glanced at him and smiled. "I had help," she replied. He nodded. "We're here for each other," he said. Around them, neighbors chatted and worked side by side, the earlier tension of the eviction crisis replaced by a sense of shared purpose. By late afternoon, the mural was complete. The wall now beamed with color, a reminder that even through hardship, beauty could grow. The precinct captain brought out lemonade and cookies for everyone. Maria sat on a folding chair, sipping lemonade as her daughters ran off with new friends, their painted hands leaving fingerprints and trails across the sidewalk. She felt tears prick her eyes. but these were tears of joy. That evening, as the sun set in streaks of pink and gold, Maria sat on her apartment's small balcony, watching the world below. Lily and Sophia played quietly with their rabbit and crayons inside. The apartment felt like home again, safe and warm. Maria opened her notebook and wrote a new entry. Today we painted hope. Today I learned that mistakes can lead to new friendships. She underlined the words and added a doodle of the 3 painted houses. Later, tucked into bed, Maria told her daughters the story of the mural, the way the community came together, how a simple act of kindness could change everything. Lily yawned and whispered, "I'm proud of you, Mama." Sophia mumbled sleepily, "I love our red house." Maria kissed them both goodnight and watched as they drifted into dreams filled with butterflies and suns. As she turned off the lamp, Maria felt the future stretching out before her, bright, hopeful, and full of possibility. She knew there would be challenges ahead, bills to pay and worries to face, but she also knew she had a network of support and the fierce love of her daughters to guide her. She closed her eyes with a gentle smile, the echo of children's laughter and the memory of colorful paint still vivid in her mind. No longer just surviving, she was thriving, and together, they had painted a new beginning.